For months, the Society of Slumber went on, and with what it did normally, prior to my joining. We would meet up in the hideout and just hang out, discussing random things. There was no grand plan or methods to uncover the conspiracy. We knew it existed, but none of us had a plan of how to prove it to anyone. And even if we could prove it to all our classmates, without the support of the adults, we couldn't do anything about it. But that didn't stop me from trying. Aurora, Hem, and Lucky didn't seem to be the types to do research, so I began to do so alone. I looked in the library for any information I could gain to support our claims. However, as I looked, I quickly began to realize something. That, if there was a conspiracy, they surely wouldn't leave any trace of proof. There were no books on the great tragedies, rarely any books on history, and nothing about the history of Van Atomen. It was as though the history of everything had been erased. I didn't know what else to do, so I began to wander the town. With no knowledge to consume, I felt somewhat empty. However, I could take some solace in the fact that I was growing up, and soon I would be able to find a job and learn a trade that would preoccupy my time. But that would have to wait. For now, I was deep in thought about what I would have to do next. My fellow members of the SOS wouldn't be much help in coming up with any ideas, so I continued to wander around the town aimlessly. It just so happened that I was passing by one of the closed-off mines when I snapped back to reality. I look over at the entrance, noticing the guards around it, and turn to continue on. But I stop, as something crosses my mind. What is actually in those mines? I ponder. I had never seen anyone coming in or out of them, and they're always fairly heavily guarded. I felt as though the proof of our conspiracy would be found down there. I couldn't rightly march past the guards and investigate, so I decided to go back to the hideout and discuss it with the other members. I open the door to the hideout and walk inside. I'm greeted by a chorus of, "Hey! Good news, every pony. I think I have an idea of how to get some proof. Do any of you know anything about the mines?" I ask them. They all shake their heads, to which I reply, "Good. Then it must be correct. I believe that in those mines lies the proof we need. We just need a plan to get into them." They look at each other before Aurora says, "Brilliant! Now that you mention it, I've never seen inside of them, ever. Great! This is just what we need. Let's march down there and demand they show us inside." Her eyes sparkle, and she breaks out into a grin. Lucky rolls his eyes as he says, "Come on, Aurora. They aren't going to let us have a tour. They guard it for a reason, you know." I nod and say, "Exactly, Lucky. We need a plan, and a good one at that." Fine. We'll make a plan, then," Aurora says dejectedly. "But I've never really been a mare for plans. I have something else to take care of anyhow, so you guys get discussing a plan. I'll be back later." Aurora then left the hideout without another word. "She does that too often," Lucky says with a slight smirk. "Every time," Hem agrees. "Yeah. Now then, on to the plan. Any ideas?" I ask. Hem shakes his head, as expected, but Lucky begins brainstorming. "Well, how many mine entrances are there?" I think for a moment. I recall there being 3 in total, one in the north, southeast, and the west. Each is guarded by 2 guards at all times. 3, I reply. "Which do we try for?" Hem asks. "Good question," Hem says. "Perhaps we should all scout them out first." I nod. "Yeah, that seems like a good idea for now. Let's see which would be the easiest to deal with. I suppose we can each take one entrance?" Both nod, and we all get up to leave. As I reach the door, I turn to them. "Be careful not to do anything suspicious and draw attention to yourselves. Just take a look around." I take the western entrance, while Hem takes the north, and Lucky takes the southeast. We agree to meet back up at the hideout once our scouting is done. I trot to the western mine, and look around the surrounding area. There aren't many buildings around it, and a lot of ponies are moving around the area. The only thing of note was a large building that rose higher than the others. However, it was too much of an open area, and the guards would see us coming from ways away. It would certainly be complicated to get into the mines from this entrance. If there is something in the mines that we aren't supposed to see, the guards will be on the lookout, for school children especially, if all the adults are in on it. And the rest of the adults walking around the area certainly wouldn't let us fool the guards and just sneak in. The guards themselves were clad in their usual armor, and completely stoic and unmoving. I'm not sure if I ever saw either one blink yet. They were certainly dedicated to guarding the entrance. I'll give them that. I turn to leave when I catch a glimpse of a pony staring at me through a curtained window. But when our eyes meet, they turn away and close the curtain. That was odd, I thought. Well, not much else to scout out here. I might as well go back to the hideout. I turned my gaze from the window and began walking back to the hideout. As I got halfway back, I spot Aurora, going the way I am as well, with some full saddlebags. I trot up to her and say, "What you got there?" She jumps a little at my sudden approach before saying, "Just some stuff for our..." She pauses and lowers her voice. "Trip." I'm confused for a moment by what she says, before her meaning sinks in. "Ah, is that what you meant by having something special to do?" I inquire. "Yes," she responds. "I'm not a planner. I'm a doer." She gives me a sly smile, and we continue on towards the hideout. Once we arrive, both Hem and Lucky are already there. We swap greetings before I ask Aurora, "So, what's in your bags?" She gives a wide smile as she puts them on the table and opens them, letting us see the contents. "I wasn't exactly sure what we'd need," she says, "so I got quite a few things. Food, ropes, medical supplies, that sort of thing. We have no clue what we might find, or how long we'll be in the mines, so I thought it'd be best to be prepared." Well, I thought, she wasn't our leader without reason. She always thinks ahead, even though she never plans anything out. Lucky lets out a whistle and says, "Good work, as usual, Aurora." "Indeed," I agree. Now then, how did the scouting go? Personally, my entrance had a lot of traffic, and the guards looked ready for anything. I also saw something odd. A pony was looking out the window at me, but when I saw them, they closed their curtain and turned away. "That seems like a no-go, right?" Aurora asks. "Yeah, I was thinking the same thing," I reply. "What about you two?" Hem and Lucky exchange glances, and Hem begins. "The north was similar. Lots of ponies, unmoving guards, and not much room to hide. It would be hard," he says. That one too?" Aurora sighs. "What about you, Lucky?" I ask. "Well, my entrance had the same type of guards as you both found. However, there wasn't much traffic around it at all. While it doesn't have much in terms of places to hide for the most part, there are a few small buildings near it we could use, if necessary," he says. We all exchange smirks before Aurora exclaims, "That sounds like our ticket in." She gets up and heads to the door. "Let's go then." The others and I exchange questioning looks before Hem says, "We need a plan. We can't just march in." Lucky stands up as well. "He's right, you know. If we go in there without a plan of action, we won't make it any farther." Aurora turns around and sits back down at the table. "Fine then," she says with a pouty look on her face. "Let's make a plan, I guess." Lucky sits back down and uses his magic to float over some paper and pencil. "I'll start off by drawing us a map of the entrance," Lucky says as he starts scribbling on the paper. "This goes here. I think this is how that looked," he mutters as he draws. A few moments pass until he exclaims, "And done!" He sets his drawing down in the middle of the table so we can all see it. "This is pretty much how it looks," he says. Hem and I try to hide a grin, but Aurora bursts out into laughter. "Seriously? That's your drawing? A filly could have done better." Lucky just rolls his eyes and says, Yeah, I get it. I'm not an artist. But all the basic details are there. Quiet down." Once Aurora manages to stifle her laughter, we continue on with the planning. "So, what do you think, Lucky? Could we use those small buildings to hide behind while we create a distraction?" I ask. "We should be able to. But how will we distract them? They didn't seem to move for anything," he replies. "Don't worry about that. I'll do it," Aurora declares. "I'll prepare a backup for when she fails," Hem says bluntly. Lucky and I laugh slightly when Aurora puffs out her cheeks. Once we finish laughing and everyone calms down, we go over the plan in a bit more detail, with Aurora stating that her distraction will be a surprise. When we get all the details down, we decide to put our plan into action the following morning. We say our goodbyes before heading home for the night. The following day, we are currently gathered around the small building, as per our plan. We had met up at our hideout to go over the plan one last time and then traveled here together. Aurora was just about to start whatever distraction she had planned. She looks back at us, and we nod to her. She then takes a deep breath and begins running straight to the guards, screaming for help. Lucky almost falls to the ground laughing, while Hem and I just roll our eyes. "Guards, help!" Aurora cries as she runs towards them. "Somebody stole my saddlebags!" She runs straight into them, while continuing to shout for help and claiming someone stole her bags. "This was her brilliant plan?" Lucky asks. "Yep. Only Aurora could come up with this," I reply. "Don't worry. My plan's ready," Hem says. Aurora reaches the guards in a few moments, but they remain as passive as ever. "Hello? Guards!" Aurora shouts frantically. "Someone stole my saddlebags. Can you, help?" She begins waving her hooves in front of their faces. "Hello? Anyone in there? Things got stolen? Guards? Help?" After a few moments of this, she stands there dumbfounded, while staring daggers at them before grunting and exclaiming, Fine. I'll get them back myself. Thanks a lot, guards." She then turns and gallops back to us. Lucky can barely contain himself while teasing her. "So, that was your brilliant distraction, eh?" Aurora puffs out her cheeks and says, "Shut it." Hem and I smile at the scene of Lucky laughing at Aurora, while she tries to make him stop. "Okay, enough playing around," Hem says. My turn. He moves to leave our hiding spot, when he stops and turns back to us. "Oh, also," he says, "this plan requires that I don't go with you. Find something good." He then runs out of cover towards the guards. He covers the distance quickly, and when he is close enough, he turns around and kicks one of the guards with enough force to send the guard into the other one. Hem turns to face them as they recover, their passive expressions turning into anger. I hear one of them say, "Why, you little," before Hem turns around and runs in the opposite direction from us. The guards get on their hooves and begin to chase him. "Now that is a distraction, Aurora," Lucky says with a smirk. Aurora turns and says something back, but I speak up before she can. "Save the bacon for later. Let's get in the mine while they're away." We dash out of cover and towards the mine entrance. Lucky gets there first, but stops and turns to us. "It's locked," he says. "Of course it is. They wouldn't leave it unlocked, genius," I say, as I levitate out my lock-picking tools from my bags and begin to open the lock. "What?" exclaims Aurora. "You can pick locks?" "Of course I can. You spend enough time reading books, and you learn all kinds of things. I say as I finish opening the lock. I open the door and we hurry inside before I close it quietly behind us.